Betty's Beauty World, located right in the heart of the city, stood tall, its neon sign glowing brightly, beckoning every passerby. The building was adorned with a luxurious facade, its large windows displaying beautiful images of models with flawless makeup. Inside the makeup studio was a blend of sophistication and modernity. The studio was spacious, filled with the soft hum of chit-chats from customers. There were plush chairs in shades of cream, where clients sat comfortably while Betty worked her magic. Betty's Beauty World looked and felt like a place where transformation happened, an oasis where one could become the most glamorous version of themselves. Betty herself was an enigma, a charming woman in her early 30s with an impeccable sense of style. She always wore flawless makeup, her lips painted in shades of red, her lashes long, and her cheeks perfectly contoured. She greeted every client with a warm smile, her eyes twinkling with promise. People flocked to Betty's Beauty World from far and wide, whether it was a birthday, a wedding, a party, or even just a night out at the club. Betty's studio was the first and only choice for many. There was something about her touch, her precision, and her talent that left every customer glowing in radiant confidence in their step as they walked out of her studio, garnering compliments wherever they went. But beneath her flawless exterior and flourishing success, there was a secret that none of her clients knew, a dark, sinister secret that she hid with that radiant smile. Betty's success was not just the result of her talent, it was fueled by something much more malicious. Every time a client came in, Betty would wipe their face with a special face wipe before applying makeup. She would do this while chatting animatedly, making her clients feel relaxed, while she discreetly collected each used wipe and placed it into a small nylon bag, tucking it away where no one would notice. Her clients never thought twice about it. It was just part of the beauty process. But for Betty, these used wipes were much more. After the day's work was done, she would take that nylon bag home, and there, in the privacy of her own space, she would begin a ritual that she learned from a mysterious herbalist named Baba Ogun years ago. This ritual was the true source of her flourishing business. Every night, Betty would take out the used wipes and boil them in a pot filled with a special water, a water that had been prepared with herbs and magic, gifted to her by the herbalist. As the water cooled, Betty would pour it into a glass and drink it, her eyes closing in pleasure as she felt the power flow through her veins. She would then squeeze the remaining liquid out of the wipes and store it in a container she kept hidden in her room. This ritual allowed her to absorb her clients' destinies, their luck, and their good fortune. With each wipe she boiled, she snatched their good fortune, adding it to her own, making herself more successful, more popular. But there was another part to the ritual as well. Baba Ogun had given her a special liquid to mix on the powder she used on her clients' faces. This liquid was a binding agent. It sealed their fates. Once Betty applied her powder to her client, their fate was sealed. Their destiny was no longer their own. The ritual had been simple but effective. The results were astonishing. Betty's Beauty World was the most sought-after makeup studio in town. People spoke of her as if she had magic in her hands, and in a way, she did. New clients came in every day, lured by the promises of flawless beauty. And as new clients came in, the old ones seemed to vanish, forgotten, left behind, their lives slowly unraveling. For those who had their makeup done by Betty, misfortune followed. The once bright features they had envisioned would dim, and despair would take hold. But as old customers faded away, new ones always lined up, unaware of what had happened to those before them. Yet, Betty remained untouchable. Her success grew, and so did her influence. People wanted to be around her, to be her friend, to get a taste of whatever it was that made her so special. Betty basked in their admiration, all the while keeping her secret tightly guarded. Everything was going smoothly until one day, a young woman named Chido was preparing for her wedding. She had always heard of Betty's beauty world and dreamt of getting her makeup done there, but it had always been expensive. Now, with her marriage to a wealthy man, she finally had the chance. She was ecstatic. Betty's reputation preceded her, and this was her big day. She wanted to look perfect, and who better than Betty to make her shine? She was excited, thrilled even, to have Betty work her magic on her. Chido walked into Betty's studio early in the morning, her heart pounding with excitement. Betty welcomed her warmly, and Chido instantly felt at ease. The studio was buzzing with activity, but Betty made her feel like she was the most important person in the room. She guided her to one of the plush chairs, draping a cape around her shoulders before starting. As usual, Betty took out the special face wipe, gently wiping Chido's face while they chatted about her wedding. She then quietly put the used wipe into a nylon bag, just like she always did. The entire process was seamless. Chido was none the wiser. When Betty was done, Chido looked herself in the mirror and gasped. She was stunning. Her face was glowing, her features perfectly highlighted. She looked every bit the beautiful bride she had dreamt of. Betty smiled as Chido gushed her thanks, her eyes wide with gratitude. The wedding went off without a hitch. Chido was radiant, and everyone admired her beauty. She was blissfully happy as she walked down the aisle, unaware of the fate that awaited her. 2 months after the wedding, things began to change for Chido and her husband. It started with a fire in her husband's warehouse. They lost everything in the fire. 2 days later, Chido's boutique also caught fire, leaving her devastated. She couldn't understand what was happening. Everything was crumbling around them. Their happiness shattered, their dreams slipping through their fingers. Chido was inconsolable, crying day and night. Her once beaming smile now replaced with tears and sorrow. Her husband sat quietly, unable to make sense of it all. His shoulders heavy with the weight of their misfortune. He was helpless, and it seemed like no solution was in sight. The final blow came when their house caught fire as well, leaving them with nothing and nowhere to go. Chido had lost everything: her dreams, her happiness, and her life she had envisioned for herself and her husband. Desperate, she turned to her mother, seeking solace. She narrated all that had happened, her tears endless. Her mother listened quietly, her heart breaking for her daughter. She knew this wasn't ordinary, that something dark was at play. She remembered a man of God, a pastor who had helped people in similar situations, and suggested they visit him. They went together to see the pastor, who listened carefully as Chido described all that had happened. He closed his eyes in deep thought. They began to pray. After a while, He looked at them and spoke with certainty. What had happened was not natural. There is an evil force behind it. It began on the day of your marriage. Chidalu's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean? She asked. He explained that their misfortune began on the day Chidalu went to get her makeup done for her wedding. The makeup artist had taken her destiny, snatching her good fortune and replacing it with darkness. When she married her husband, their destinies intertwined, and this was why he too had been affected. Chidalu was stunned. She stared at him, her mouth slightly open in shock. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She took my destiny? Chidalu stammered, barely able to comprehend it. The pastor nodded. Yes, and you are not her only victim. Many others have fallen prey to her evil. But there is hope. You can take back what is rightfully yours. How? Chidalu's mother asked, her eyes glistening with hope. The woman keeps a container where she keeps the used wipes that she had used on people in her home. The pastor explained, you need to take that container and bring it to me. I will pray and burn it. Only then can we break the bond she has over your destinies. Chidalu and her mother looked at each other. It sounded impossible. How could they break into Betty's home and find this container without getting caught? The pastor told her where Betty lived and explained that the container was kept in her room, hidden away. He warned her to be careful and make sure she's not caught, or the consequences would be severe. And also make sure to go when Betty is at work. Chidalu felt a rush of fear, but it was outweighed by her desire to end the nightmare she and her husband were living. She had to do it. There was no other way. She nodded. I will do it, she said with determination. When Chidalu returned home, she explained everything to her husband. Together, they devised a plan to sneak into Betty's home. They knew it was risky, but they were willing to do whatever it took to reclaim their lives. One morning, they waited outside Betty's home, hiding behind a corner. As they watched her leave for work, as soon as she was out of sight, they made their way to her house, the adrenaline rushing through them. They sneaked inside, heading straight for her room, as the pastor had instructed. They searched quickly, their hearts pounding, until they found the container. They carefully put it in a nylon bag, leaving the house as quickly as they had come. They took the container to the pastor, who prayed over it. He lit a fire and burned the contents, praying for the release of every soul that had been bound by Betty's evil practice. He looked at Chidalu and her husband and smiled, telling them they were free. God has saved you, he said. The evil one has no hold over God's children. Chidalu and her husband were overjoyed. They thanked God for his mercy and the pastor for his help. They left the church that day with hope in their hearts, ready to rebuild their lives. Meanwhile, Betty returned home that evening, ready to perform her usual ritual. She boiled the used wipes, following the process she had done for years. But when she went to her bedroom to put the wipes in the container, she couldn't find it. She searched frantically, her heart racing. She couldn't believe it. The container, the one thing that held all her power, was gone. Her hands were trembled as she tore through her room, scattering items in every direction. Her breath came out in short, rapid gasps as she tried to piece together what could have happened. Where is it? She muttered to herself, her voice cracking. I can't lose it. I can't lose it. I just can't. I can't. Panic was quickly turning into despair. The container had been in the same spot for years, hidden carefully. She had made sure it's untouched and undisturbed, but now it's gone. She had no idea who could have taken it or how they even found it. Her mind ran through possibilities, but nothing made sense. Betty slumped to the floor, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed her phone, her fingers fumbling as she dialed Baba's number. "Hello, Baba. There is a problem. A very big problem." Betty's voice quivered. "What is it?" Baba replied, his voice a mixture of impatience and irritation. "I can't find the container," Betty cried. "I can't find it. I have looked everywhere and it's nowhere to be found." There was a moment of silence on the other end before Baba's voice, now sharp and angry, came through. "What? Do you know what this means, Betty? I warned you specifically to protect that container with your life. How could you be so careless?" "I don't know what happened. It was where I kept it and now it's gone. Please, Baba, you have to help me. I can't lose everything now," Betty pleaded, her voice desperate. "You should have been more careful. There is nothing I can do now. It's over," Baba said coldly. "You will have to bear the consequences. You were warned, Betty. Now, face the music." "Baba, Baba, please, help me," Betty screamed. But all she had was the click of the call being ended. She stared at her phone, her hands trembling. Baba had abandoned her, and now she was left alone to deal with the repercussions. That night, Betty tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Every creak, every shadow seemed to haunt her. She could feel something changing, a shift in the air, as if the power she had stolen was slowly slipping away from her. She was powerless, and the thoughts terrified her. As dawn approached, exhaustion finally took over, and Betty fell into a restless sleep. When she woke up, a sharp pain shot through her head. She winced, clutching her forehead. The pain was unbearable, like someone was hammering her skull from the inside. She reached for some painkillers, swallowing them quickly, but they did nothing to dull the throbbing. The pain intensified, and then suddenly, a strange urge overtook her. Without warning, she began to laugh. A strange, maniacal laughter that echoed through the empty house. She tried to stop, but she couldn't control herself. The laughter seemed to come from deep within her, and soon it turned into hysterics. Betty stumbled out of her house, her laughter turning into screams. Neighbors watched in shock as Betty tore at her clothes, her eyes wide and unfocused. She ran through the streets, her hair disheveled and her clothes in tatters, screaming and laughing at nothing. People whispered among themselves, wondering what had happened to the once flawless makeup artist who had always seemed so put together. Betty's madness didn't stop there. In her delirium, she began confessing everything she had done. The rituals, the stolen destinies, the magic behind her success. She spoke of the wives she had collected, the boiling ritual, and how she drank the essence of her clients to steal their destinies. Her voice carried through the streets, and soon the news spread like wildfire. People were horrified as they listened to Betty's confessions. They couldn't believe that the woman they had trusted had been the reason behind their downfall. One by one, the pieces began to fall into place. The sudden misfortunes, the unexplained failures, it all made sense now. Betty's makeup studio, once bustling with customers, was now empty. The sign that read Betty's Beauty World hung loosely, swaying in the wind. No one dared to go near it, and people whispered curses as they walked past. Betty's empire had crumbled overnight, and she was left wandering the streets, lost in her own madness. Thank you for watching, guys. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share to your loved ones. And please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of our new story. And also share your thoughts on the comment section. Thank you and God bless. Bye.